It looks like Neptune has just moved from Virgo to late Capricorn, which would mean you should avoid any serious romantic estranglements for a while. At least until the end of the month, when Mercury turns retrograde. Something about your horoscope isn't making sense. Let me see your hand. Yes, interesting. I'm not much at bleeding palms, but your future seems rather cloudy. Kind of like the woman in tonight's tale. She's been contemplating her scar sign, too. In a nasty nugget I call a slight case of murder.
Murder's a tricky business, thought Mulligan. Almost as tricky as love. The end. Yes.
Hello, Sharon, dear. I saw you writing away. I didn't want to disturb. Cup of sugar?
Mrs. Trask.
Oh, I wish I could borrow a cup of adjectives instead.
How about a cup of brain cells instead?
Don't think that I'm being pushy, Sharon, dear, but have you had a chance to read my story yet?
As much as I could bear. Yes, I did, Mrs. Trask.
Oh, did you like it?
Well, let's just say, in the pantheon of mystery writers, there's the greats, there's everyone else who's ever written a book, and then there's you.
Oh, it doesn't sound as though you liked it very much.
Agatha Christie can rest in peace as far as you're concerned. Thanks for coming.
You'll be pleased to know I've become much more organised. I even know how my next story is going to end.
Mrs. Trask, I live by one hard and fast rule. In matters of murder, never know the ending till you get there.
Never know. Oh, I like that. In matters of murder, I never know. That's good.
Goodbye.
Oh, how is that husband of yours? Is he still away? Thanks for the sugar.
Christ, now what does she want? Nosy, bloody idiot. You've had it. Sergeant Dimbleby? It's Sharon Bannister here. I think I've got a prowler about. Could you send someone? Oh, really? 30 minutes, well, by that time Yes, I see. Understand. Maybe there is someone. Oh, hell. Sergeant Dimbleby?
No.
Who is this?
Well, it's Larry. Sharon, are you all right?
Larry. I think there's somebody here.
Honey, are you all right?
Oh, my God.
Sharon?
They're coming in. They're coming in.
Honey? Honey? Are you all right?
You bastard!
You used to call me Biscuit. Come on, admit it. When you heard my voice, you felt better.
I should take this poker and rearrange your organs now. Get out of my house. Get out!
You mind if I warm up a bit first? Your house? That's not a good sign. Whatever happened to our house?
The only place this was ever our house was in your dreams.
I get the feeling this separation's been harder on me than you.
Pity. Probably won't like the divorce any better. I didn't hear your car pull up.
Oh, I didn't bring the car, Bumpkin. I took the train to Chumley, hiked the rest of the way.
Hiked? It's 20 miles.
21, actually. I wanted to surprise you. You know how the local busybodies are. Damn Mrs. Trask. No secrets with her, you know. Surprise, sweetie.
This is a very sick joke.
The only sick joke I'm aware of is our marriage. But then again, I'm biased. I may have been dishonest with you, but I never cheated on you.
Meaning?
Oh, please.
Larry, I think you'd better go home and sleep this off.
Not drunk, I'm afraid. Oh, I need the keys to your car.
I'll, call a cab.
I don't think you get it, Lammy Pie. I'm driving your car out of here. And when I pass Mrs. Trask's place, the old bag will watch after your headlights and think to herself, I wonder where Sharon's going this time of night.
Oh, that's almost clever.
Oh, they'll find your abandoned car in some roadside services. They'll search for a week or so, but in the end...
Larry, you don't have to do this.
No? Oh, I can imagine what kind of settlement your lawyers will offer me. On the other hand, if you died now, plus throw in a posthumous bestseller. Qu'est-ce que c'est, Snookums?
Drop it, or I'll put a hole right through that sick little brain of yours.
Oh, ouch. That sounds like a line from one of your stupid books. Some murder mystery writer you are. The safety's on, you deceitful two-timing bitch! Love hurts, doesn't it?
Sharon! It's all right, Sharon. I know where the spare key is kept. Sharon, I've got a little riddle for you. A box with no hinges, key or lid, but golden treasure inside it is hid. Do you give up? It's an egg, of course. Oh, poor dear. She's a million miles away. I'm sorry to disturb you, Sharon. It's all right. I know where the eggs are kept. You know, I've been doing all this research, dear. It's given me so many good ideas. In my next story, the man dies with a gun in his hand. And as rigor mortis sets in, his finger tightens on the trigger. Bang! The murdered murderer. What do you think? Yes, well, I can see that you're busy.
To love, honour and obey. Nope. Richer or for poorer. Nope. In sickness and in health. Till death us do part. Oh, 1 out of 4 ain't bad.
Dear Cupcake, I know I've told you in my letters not to speak to me for fear that my husband would find out. But the time is coming soon when this wall of silence will be destroyed.
All right.
Joey!
What? Oh, bloody hell. I've told you, Mum, I don't want you bothering me.
Will you take these to Mrs. Bannister? I think she could do with a bit of cheering up.
Cheering up.
Well, I've got a feeling that she and her husband aren't getting on very well. Oh, he's such a violent man. I wouldn't be surprised a bit if he didn't, you know.
You know, Pet, when we're alone together and you're all quiet like this, I could almost fall in love with you again.
Mrs. Bannister? Mrs. Bannister? Sharon?
leave your car keys.
Sharon! You'll pay for this.
Oh my God.
Did Mrs. Bannister like her gingerbread? Anything going on at the house?
Murder.
Oh, that's wonderful. Perhaps I inspired her.
Hello?
Hi, lover. You didn't hit me hard enough. You always were romantic.
Sharon, where are you?
By the way, thanks for leaving the gun up here. I think I just figured how to get the safety off. Bye, biscuit.
You.
That's it. What an idea. That's the answer.
Is that the Trask kid?
You're alive. Thank God. Cupcake's gonna save you.
Cupcake? You call him Cupcake?
I haven't the slightest idea what he's talking about.
Oh, give it up, you lying cow. I've read the goddamn postcard he sent you.
What postcard?
I never sent you a postcard. You told me never to contact you.
Oh, what the hell are you talking about?
For Christ's sake, Sharon, I know you're screwing him.
I wouldn't sleep with that moron if he had the last erection in the universe.
You bitch. My stomach. It's like it's on fire.
Don't move, Larry.
if you weren't sleeping with him, what the flipping hell's going on here?
That's what I want to know.
Oh, dear.
Call an ambulance.
Make the husband think the wife is cheating, manipulate the boy to fall in love with the wife, poison the gingerbread so the police will think the boy has committed suicide. It doesn't say anything on here about calling for an ambulance.
You did this.
Of course, nothing quite went the way I wanted it to. I was really very surprised. But you were so right, Sharon. In matters of murder, you never know the ending until you get there. Oh, I'm afraid you're empty, dear. You see, the breach is back, you see? Research is so important.
Please. I'll give you anything.
How about your latest bestseller? I saw it on your writing desk.
Conniving bitch.
Oh, really? You'll get your sweater all messed up. I think I'll call it Death by Love Triangle. Do you like that? I'll take that as a yes.
Looks like Sharon's due for a little career change. From writing novels to screenplays. But with a talent like hers, I'm sure she'll just grim and bear it. Now I know what's bothering me. You know the Zodiac never lies. You told me you were Sagittarius, but the truth is, you're Pisces. Fall in! Did you hear me, maggot? I said fall in! I swear you must be the sorriest bunch of sad sacks I ever did see. You're a disgrace to the uniform, all of you, and you call yourself a scare force? What's your problem, soldier? You some kind of mummy's boy? That it? I guess you think you're like the man in tonight's tale. He's not much of a soldier either. It's a nasty little shriek and destroy mission I call escape.
That way.
But that can't be right.
The channel is that way, Schloss. Trust me.
Look up at the sky! See where the moon is?
Why don't you shut up?
We're heading back towards the camp. We're going in the wrong direction. Luger, what are you doing? Halt!
What took you so long?
You son of a bitch! Don't you, Luger, betray us!
Run for the moon! Come on, hide! Run! Run!
I'd like to talk about my arrangements.
Your arrangements?
We had an agreement, Major Norris and I.
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
Good. Then there shouldn't be any problem giving me what I want.
And what would that be, Lieutenant? Car at your disposal? Room service?
Maybe you don't understand. But when I warned Major Norris that there would be an escape attempt, he told me that he was going to...
I don't care what he told you. I don't approve of making deals with the enemy.
But Major Norris assured me.
Have you no shame? 3 of your own men are dead because you betrayed them.
They shouldn't have run. They were stupid. Stupid people deserve to die. You should be thanking me.
I'm curious, Lieutenant Luger. What makes a man betray his comrades?
They were the traitors as far as I'm concerned. The war will be over soon. I'd like to spend the rest of it as comfortably as I can. If those men had have escaped, there would have been sanctions for the rest of us. So, you see, Major, I did all of us a favor.
Sergeant. Sir? Get this pathetic excuse for a soldier out of my sight.
Yes, sir.
3 good men are dead because of you. I'd shoot you myself, but you're not worth the bullet.
Right, move it. Come on. This way. You wait here, right? You men there, break it up before I break you!
Excuse me.
Are you Luger? What's it to you?
You escaped from Leecroft 2 days ago. No one's ever done that before.
Maybe no one ever wanted to.
We'd like you to help us get out of this place.
Oh, so you want to escape?
The fatherland needs us. Now more than ever.
Here comes the Cossack Knabe.
Out of the way there. So you met the welcoming committee? How nice. Move. Come on, move it.
I don't have to work. I'm an officer. It's against the Geneva Conventions.
Get in there.
The problem is that nobody really cares. You can protest to that son of a bitch Nicholson until you're blue in the face, but it won't get you anywhere. Mind you, there is a little satisfaction to the work. These coffins are used to bury the British war days. And so long as we all keep quiet about it, we get to keep our privileges. And if it comes down to privileges or a bunch of stupid rules, I know. I feel the same way about forced labor. Mind you, I feel the same way about escaping, too.
What do you mean by that?
Just what I said. My English is quite good. At least, I understand it better than I speak it. But I was very clear what the guards were saying about you.
What do you want?
What makes you think I want anything? Hell, I'm happy to have found a kindred spirit. Someone who, like me, is perfectly happy staying put. Someone who, like me, understands the value of information and how it can be used.
Now, we already have a small store of weapons. Jerry-rigged knives, mostly. And we have a dummy keys that open some of the inner doors. And Heinrich here has started putting together a few uniforms.
Good. Very good.
And of course, Albert's trying to figure out where all the tunnels under the castle lead to.
Tunnels?
Yeah, there's miles of them. They're everywhere. And that's not counting the air shafts that run through the walls. Matter of fact, one of the biggest runs directly under this building. When you tunneled out of Leecroft, how far beyond the main gate did you have to dig?
Well, you see, that was the beauty of our plan. The tunnels were just a diversion. And while the British were looking for us down there, we snuck through the fence and got away.
Ah, you see? That is the kind of cunning we need. With Lieutenant Luger to lead us, I know we will find a way out of here.
Krupp, check this out. An ambulance just pulled into the courtyard. A friend of yours?
Who the hell are you? This is not your detail. Come on, you! Get the bloody hell out of here! Move it! Move it!
They already have weapons and uniforms and detailed maps of the tunnels that run under this place. And keys. They have keys, too.
Yes? And?
And, well, now that I have told you, you have to do something about it. And because I helped you, I think it is,
Let's lay our cards on the table, shall we? I know exactly why you came here. You're scared to death on your arrival. Well, I'm going to let you into a little secret. I arranged for Lieutenant Schloss to be brought here. And once he begins to speak again, which the doctors assure me should be within a few days, I'm sure your fellow inmates will be very impressed with what he has to tell them about the man they've chosen to lead their escape.
Thank you very much.
It's him, isn't it? In the hospital. The man you escaped with.
Don't you ever get sick of knowing everything?
It hasn't happened yet. Nicholson, he set you up, didn't he? What a son of a bitch.
Can you believe it? It's the first time in this stinking war I ever wanted to kill the enemy.
We are just like two peas in a pod, huh? When they conscripted me, I told them, I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Listen, I just about had it with you.
What are you looking at?
I think I see a way to get even with Nicholson.
You do?
You're very lucky. This is the last one.
Fräulein, miss, can I talk to you?
Well, we're not really meant to speak
You're
with...
a good person, I can see that. And you're the only person who can help. There's something going on in the camp. Something illegal.
Illegal?
It's Major Nicholson. He's violating the Geneva Conventions.
You're kidding. Well, if that's true, then someone has to stop him.
The best we can tell, the tunnels only go as far as the outer wall, which doesn't really do us much good.
We could climb the wall if we got there.
The walls are 50 feet high, with guard posts along the whole length.
Yeah, I see the problem. Let me think about this.
The talk is his bandages come off tomorrow. Day after that, he'll be transferred down here.
Shit.
Look, I don't know what your little Red Cross friend can do. I mean, even if she could find someone to listen to her, it would be weeks before anyone could do anything about it. And by then...
Why don't you shut up for 2 seconds?
I'm only trying to be helpful.
Well, don't. Okay. Listen up, everyone. Here's what we have to do. The problem is, we don't know if our tunnel will get us to the other side of the outer wall. Somebody has to go through the tunnel to find out.
What if you get caught?
It won't be the first time. And the fatherland is counting on us. Right? We'll need the dummy key and a knife.
And a lookout.
I wouldn't want to put another of our lives in danger.
I know those tunnels better than anybody.
Albert's right. He should go with you.
After you.
No, after you.
I need your help, Fry. I don't want it.
And what are you going to do, huh? Just waltz into the hospital ward?
I don't need your help. Which way?
To the left.
The hospital ward is that way.
Exactly. That air shaft should lead right up to it.
It's been fun.
Nice knowing you, friends.
You miss me? Come on, admit it. I'm growing on you.
See no hell. Hurry!
You're about to be dead as a father.
Shit! This way, come on!
Get everyone out the barracks! Get them out now! I want a head count! Swear! Now!
My God, look!
Luger.
If we're here, then that Escher probably leads to the...
You idiot. There's no point in going back to the barracks now.
I know that. I'm trying to get us to the outer wall.
You think?
It's worth a try. Come on.
Albert, why did you help me? I mean, after I hit you.
It's like I told you, Luger. We are kindred spirits. Fact is, I respect what you did to me.
You're crazy.
No. I'm a survivor. Like you. Shh.
Yes, sir. Yes, I understand. Splendid. Well, I'll await your arrival, sir.
Big trouble, I'm afraid, sir. Two of the prisoners have escaped, sir. Luger and Fry. And another one's been murdered in the hospital ward.
Oh, dear God. And there's another problem, I'm afraid. That was General Christopher.
Sir?
He'll be here in a few hours, and I don't want him to see those coffins. There's a truck filled with them at the outer wall. Get it out of here.
What am I going to do with the coffins, sir?
Just get rid of the bloody things.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
This way.
John, make sure the main gate's left open.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Luger. We did it.
In spite of ourselves. I think we've made it.
You set me up!
Well, it's quite simple. I'm giving you a dose of your own. Mind you, I was hoping that putting you in the same room as Schloss would have ended differently. Great shame. He was a good soldier.
Yes, Major. At least I got him to your office in time.
Yes, good job, Lieutenant Forsyth.
You English bastards!
Oh, that phone call you overheard. That was my official notification. The war ended today. In a few hours, we shall be releasing the other prisoners.
It was fun, wasn't it? Trio?
Oh, by the way, I have changed my mind about you, Luger. You are definitely worth a bullet.
Well, Luger wanted a discharge from the army, and that's exactly what he got. Talk about a bleeder among men. I guess now he'd rather fright than snitch. Now then, let's see what you maggots are made of. About face. Parade march. Hut, 2, 3, 4. Hut, 2, 3, 4. Present arms. Now that's what I call active service.
The rain had been falling steadily for hours, a relentless drumming that turned the city streets into slick mirrors reflecting neon signs and flickering street lamps. From the fifth-floor window of a crumbling apartment building in the East End, Henry Carrington peered down at the puddle-filled alleyways, his breath fogging the glass. It was the kind of night that made you question your life choices, especially if your life revolved around things better left undisturbed. Henry, a man in his late 40s with thinning hair slicked back by nervous sweat, had spent the last 2 decades dabbling in matters that most considered morally questionable, though technically legal, barely. Tonight, however, the stakes had been raised, and Henry could feel it curling around him like the tendrils of a sinister fog creeping into every corner of his consciousness. He was hunched over his desk, a mahogany relic scratched by years of careless elbows and cigarettes, scribbling notes with a trembling hand. The room smelled of old paper, ink, and something more metallic, something that reminded him far too strongly of blood. Henry's business was, for lack of a better word, unconventional. He dealt in acquisitions of property, sometimes rescuing the unwanted from bankruptcy, sometimes quietly nudging competitors into accidental insolvency. Tonight, though, he was considering a method that went beyond nudging, beyond the clever maneuvering of balance sheets and tax loopholes. Tonight, he considered finality. The phone rang, slicing through the thick silence like a serrated knife. Henry jumped, nearly knocking over a glass of bourbon he hadn't touched in hours. He wiped his hand on his trousers before picking up. "Carrington," he said, trying to sound calm, though the slight quiver betrayed him. "Henry," came a familiar voice, smooth, chilling in its precision. "We have a situation." Henry's stomach turned. It was Gregory Halpern, his associate, partner in schemes that had both enriched and endangered them over the years. Gregory had a talent for understatement that made every phrase sound like a verdict. "What kind of situation?" Henry asked, already knowing the answer. "Minor, perhaps," Gregory said, as though that made it better. "But complications have arisen with our latest endeavor." Henry closed his eyes. The latest endeavor, a small, unassuming warehouse on the outskirts of town, previously owned by a man no one seemed to know, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The property had potential, the kind of potential that could make them both very rich if handled correctly, or ruinously poor if mishandled. Henry had been at the property earlier that day, taking inventory, ensuring that everything appeared normal. Now, the word complications hung in the air like a noose. "What kind of complications?" he asked, forcing calm into his voice. Gregory's laugh was low and humorless. "Let's just say, the previous owner may not be entirely absent. There's evidence that he might have returned. Or someone else might have." Henry's mind raced. Returning owners were a known nuisance. Unexpected witnesses, even worse. Evidence? What kind of evidence? Footprints. And something else. A stain that can't easily be explained. Henry gritted his teeth, gripping the phone as if it were the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. You mean blood? Gregory paused, just long enough to make Henry imagine the worst. Possibly. A slight case of murder, perhaps. Nothing dramatic. Nothing headline-worthy. Yet enough to ruin us if discovered. Henry's pulse quickened. He had dealt with shady matters, sometimes involving minor injuries or inconvenient accidents, but murder, even slight, was a new territory. A territory that could tip the scales from profit to prison in an instant. We need to manage this, Gregory said. Tonight. Before dawn. Henry nodded, though Gregory couldn't see him. I'll handle it, he said, voice steadier than he felt. I'll go to the warehouse. Good, Gregory replied. And Henry? Yes. Be careful. There's something different tonight. You might feel it. Don't underestimate it. The line went dead. Henry hung up the receiver and stared into the dim light of his office. He had always been meticulous, calculating, prepared for almost everything. But something in Gregory's tone, a barely perceptible edge, suggested this night would not be managed by preparation alone. By the time he reached the warehouse, the rain had turned into a fine mist, cloaking the city in a ghostly haze. The building loomed like a forgotten monument to industrial ambition, its windows dark, its doors chained. Henry's hand hesitated on the padlock. Inside, the air smelled of mildew, rust, and something else, something iron-rich and unsettling. He pulled the lock open with deliberate care, aware that every creak of the hinges seemed amplified, echoing down the empty hallways like a warning. The warehouse was vast, a cavern of shadows and debris. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, long-forgotten crates lining the walls. Henry's flashlight cut swaths through the darkness, illuminating motes of dust that danced like spirits disturbed from slumber. The footprints Gregory mentioned were easy to spot, muddy, heavy, distinct against the concrete floor. And then he saw the stain. It wasn't large, not dramatic, just a dark smear that had seeped into the cracks of the floorboards. Yet the metallic tang in the air was unmistakable. Henry swallowed, his throat dry, and bent closer. He had seen blood before, though always in controlled circumstances, accidents that had been contained, cleaned, rationalized away. This was different. This was deliberate. A noise, a shuffle, perhaps, made him freeze. His flashlight swung toward the source, catching nothing but shadows. The warehouse was empty, yet the sensation of being watched pressed against him. Henry's heart hammered against his ribs as he moved deeper, following the footprints that seemed to guide him like a sinister breadcrumb trail. Then he heard it, a faint whisper, almost lost in the wind. Henry. He spun around, flashlight beam catching the shape of a man, or what appeared to be a man, leaning against a stack of crates. The figure stepped forward, and Henry's stomach dropped. It wasn't human, or at least, not entirely. The man, or apparition, was wet, as if he had emerged from the rain, yet there was a stiffness to his movement, an unnatural precision that made Henry's skin crawl. Who are you? Henry demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. The figure smiled, a thin, humorless grin that revealed teeth too perfect to be human. I am the consequence of your choices, Henry, it said, voice hollow, echoing slightly. I am the past you tried to bury, the deals you tried to erase, the men you left behind. Henry staggered back, tripping over a crate. His flashlight flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls like a macabre ballet. You can't be real, he stammered. This is absurd. Absurdity is the currency of your life, the figure replied, stepping closer. And tonight, it comes due. Henry's mind raced. The rational part of him screamed for explanations, a trick of light, a hallucination, exhaustion. Yet the instinctive part, the part that had kept him alive through countless schemes, recognized the danger immediately. He turned, running toward the exit, but the warehouse seemed to stretch impossibly, corridors elongating, shadows twisting. He was not merely fleeing, he was navigating a labyrinth designed to punish him. Footsteps followed, soft at first, then heavier, matching his pace. He could feel the presence behind him, relentless, inevitable. Desperation fueled his legs, but every turn brought him deeper into the maze of his own making, a physical manifestation of the moral quagmire he had spent decades constructing. And then he stumbled, falling against a crate that toppled with a crash. The sound echoed like thunder. Henry's flashlight skittered across the floor, finally coming to rest on a figure crouched in the shadows, hands reaching toward him. He screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the vast emptiness. The figure spoke again, voice soft now, almost mocking. "Henry, you never knew how close you were to the edge. But now you see. You understand. And soon, you will pay." Henry scrambled backward, heart pounding, mind grasping at any fragment of logic. The warehouse, once a place of opportunity, had transformed into a theater of retribution, every shadow a player in a story written for his undoing. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes, the oppressive presence of consequences long ignored. And then, just as suddenly, silence. The footsteps ceased. The shadows stilled. Henry stood in the middle of the warehouse, shaking, gasping, flashlight flickering weakly. The stain on the floor, the footprints, the whispering figure, all gone. Nothing remained but the echo of his own panicked breathing and the metallic tang lingering in the air. He backed toward the exit cautiously, every sense alert, every nerve screaming. As he reached the door, he dared a glance over his shoulder. The warehouse was empty, but the lesson was clear. No action, no matter how slight, ever truly disappears. Outside, the rain had eased, leaving the city wet but quiet, the streets reflecting the glow of neon signs like pools of liquid color. Henry walked away, coat collar raised, mind racing. The night had changed something in him, though he could not yet say what. He had faced the consequence, felt its weight, and survived, but only barely. Somewhere in the shadows, he knew, the story was not over. It had only begun. And as he disappeared into the misty streets, a soft, chilling laugh echoed from the warehouse, carrying with it a promise that Henry Carrington's misdeeds would not remain buried. Not tonight. Not ever. Henry's apartment smelled of stale smoke and old paper when he finally returned, the city's damp chill clinging to his coat. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it, trembling, his mind still tracing the labyrinthine nightmare of the warehouse. Every detail, the footprints, the blood, the whispering figure, played over in his mind like a sinister film reel, one frame more horrifying than the last. He poured himself a drink, but the liquid barely dulled the edge of fear slicing through him. It wasn't just fear of discovery. It was something older, deeper, the knowledge that he had brushed against a truth that could not be ignored, a reckoning that had been waiting patiently for him all these years. The phone rang. Henry jumped, spilling a fraction of bourbon onto the floor. He swore under his breath and picked up the receiver. "Henry," Gregory's voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of satisfaction, almost amusement. "I see you survived the evening." "I survived," Henry said, voice shaking. "But it wasn't, nothing was ordinary, Gregory. The warehouse, there was someone there. Or something. I don't know." Gregory chuckled softly. "Ah, Henry, you always were dramatic. But yes, you are correct. Nothing was ordinary. That warehouse was never just a warehouse, was it?" Henry froze. "What do you mean?" "There are things, old things, lingering in places we think we understand. The world is full of shadows, Henry. Shadows we create, and shadows we inherit. You've just met one of the inherited ones." Henry gripped the phone tighter. "Are you saying it was supernatural?" "Let's just say," Gregory replied, his tone drawing out each syllable like a knife, "that some consequences do not wait for law, for morality, or for the human mind to catch up. They arrive on their own timetable. And they are relentless." Henry shivered, his mind trying desperately to rationalize. But no rationalization would hold tonight. Not after the way the warehouse had shifted, the way the shadows had moved. He wanted to believe it was a trick, a figment of exhaustion or imagination. But deep down, he knew better. "I can't," Henry began, voice breaking. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep chasing things I don't understand." "Chasing?" Gregory's laugh was cold. "No, Henry. You're not chasing. You're running. And you've just realized the hunt has started. The only question is how long you survive before it catches you." Henry hung up the phone, pressing his forehead to the cool glass of the window. Outside, the city pulsed with life, ignorant, oblivious. And yet, he could feel the pressure closing in, the unseen eyes watching, measuring, waiting. For years, he had thrived on control, on manipulation, on the illusion that he could navigate the world and emerge unscathed. Tonight had shattered that illusion. Sleep came fitfully, a restless procession of dreams that merged reality and nightmare. He saw the warehouse over and over, the whispers echoing in his ears, the dark figure advancing, always one step behind him, yet somehow closer. Faces he had wronged, clients, competitors, even minor acquaintances, appeared in twisted forms, their eyes accusing, their mouths moving without sound, mouthing words he could not decipher but understood perfectly. He awoke sweating, heart hammering, convinced that something had touched him in the night. Morning brought no relief. The rain had ceased, leaving a foggy haze that clung to the streets like a ghostly veil. Henry dressed quickly, anxious to escape the apartment, yet feeling the invisible tether that Gregory had mentioned. He needed air, space, a semblance of normalcy. But as he stepped outside, the city felt different. Colors were muted, sounds sharper, the faint rustle of movement in the alleys unsettlingly precise. He walked without direction, moving through streets that felt familiar yet subtly distorted. Shop windows reflected his own face, gaunt and lined with worry, but in the reflection, his eyes seemed darker, as if some external weight had seeped into his very soul. Each step felt heavier, burdened with the memory of the warehouse, the whispers, and the knowledge that he was being watched. By mid-morning, he found himself outside the offices of a private investigator, a man named Alton Price, whose reputation for discretion and effectiveness was unmatched in the city. Gregory had suggested Henry seek him out in cases of unusual difficulty. This was unusual, by any measure. Henry hesitated before entering, a strange sensation creeping up his spine. Something about Price's office seemed alive. The blinds shifted slightly, though no breeze entered. The faint scent of ink and leather carried a metallic undertone. "Mr. Carrington," Price greeted him, standing from behind a cluttered desk, eyes sharp, calculating. "I've been expecting you." Henry blinked. "You have?" Price nodded, as though confirming a long-held secret. "Yes. The kind of trouble you've invited cannot remain hidden forever, and I have a feeling you've already seen the first ripple." Henry swallowed, unease settling deep in his chest. "I need help. Something is happening." He stopped, the words caught in his throat. "It's not normal. It's not logical." Price gestured for him to sit. "Logic has its limits, Mr. Carrington. Ideal in the realities people refuse to acknowledge. Sometimes, that means confronting things that cannot be explained in the traditional sense. You've already glimpsed one of these realities. The question is whether you're willing to see it fully." Henry nodded, though apprehension gnawed at him. "I have no choice." Price leaned back, steepling his fingers. "No, you don't. The warehouse, the whispers, the figure, it's all connected to a series of events you set in motion long ago. Small, seemingly innocuous actions, but each one layered upon the next, creating a cumulative effect. And now, it's demanding acknowledgement." Henry frowned. "Acknowledgement?" "Yes," Price said. "An accounting. A reckoning. And it will not be gentle. The city hides many secrets, Mr. Carrington. Some sleep quietly. Others awaken when disturbed. You have stirred one of the latter, and it has taken notice." Henry felt a chill creep up his spine. What do I do?" Price's expression hardened. "You prepare. You make choices. You act decisively. Hesitation will only make matters worse. And you must trust no one completely, not even your closest allies. Some shadows wear familiar faces. Some whispers come from voices you think you recognize. The only certainty is vigilance." As Henry left Price's office, a sense of urgency propelled him forward. He needed to return to the warehouse, to understand, to confront whatever had emerged from the darkness. But the city had changed, or perhaps it had only revealed its true nature. A labyrinth of secrets, each corner shadowed, each alleyway hiding consequences. By late afternoon, he returned, the warehouse looming as foreboding as the night before. He approached cautiously, flashlight in hand, every nerve alert. Inside, the air was damp and cold, the silence absolute. The stain on the floor was still there, darker now, as if it had absorbed the night's rain and multiplied in intensity. Footprints surrounded it, forming a circle that seemed deliberately designed to trap, to ensnare. Henry moved closer, the metallic scent stronger, almost suffocating. And then he saw it, a figure crouched by the far wall, head bowed, hands twitching slightly. The hair, slick with water, obscured the face, but the posture radiated menace. Henry froze, unsure whether to call out or retreat. The figure lifted its head slowly, revealing eyes that glowed faintly, unnaturally, reflecting the beam of his flashlight. "Henry," it whispered, voice a blend of mockery and inevitability. "You cannot run. You cannot hide. Every choice you made led to this moment." Henry stumbled back, heart pounding, realizing fully that this was not merely a haunting or a hallucination. This was judgment, personified, relentless, intelligent. I can fix this," he stammered, though he knew the claim was hollow. "You can try," the figure said, stepping closer, shadows stretching unnaturally. "But the ledger is written, and the entries demand balance. A slight case of murder. Yes, but every act has its price. Yours is due tonight." Henry's mind raced. He thought of Gregory, of Price, of the choices he had made over decades. Every manipulation, every deceit, every carefully hidden act of cruelty now converged here, in this damp, shadowed warehouse. He realized that he had underestimated the weight of consequence, the inevitability of the reckoning. The figure reached out, and Henry flinched, instinctively retreating. The air seemed to thicken, the shadows coiling around him like living serpents. And yet, in that instant of confrontation, Henry glimpsed something else, a reflection of himself in the figure's eyes, not monstrous, but entirely human. The realization struck him harder than fear. This was his own creation, his own misdeeds given form. The rain outside began anew, drumming against the roof with relentless insistence. Henry's breath came in sharp gasps as he faced the embodiment of his past, the physical manifestation of a life poorly led. He understood now that survival would demand more than cunning, more than speed. It would demand honesty, accountability, perhaps even sacrifice. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the warehouse seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if aware that the confrontation had only begun. Henry's mind raced as he stood in the center of the warehouse, the figure's glowing eyes fixed on him like twin lanterns of accusation. Every muscle in his body screamed to flee, yet some invisible tether held him in place, forcing him to confront the consequences he had long ignored. The footprints surrounding the bloodstains seemed to thrum beneath his feet, each echo a reminder of choices he had made, people he had manipulated, corners he had cut, debts he had ignored. All of it converged in this damp, shadow-filled cavern of consequence. "Henry," the figure intoned again, voice a haunting whisper that seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves. "Do you understand now? The ledger cannot be rewritten. Every act demands settlement. Every slight, every deception, every sin accounted for." Henry swallowed, voice trembling. I understand. But what do you want from me?" The figure tilted its head, almost in amusement. "You want to bargain, of course. But there are no bargains here. Only acknowledgement. Only confrontation. Only payment." Henry's hands shook as he realized the weight of the night's events. Payment. Not in money, not in fines or reparations, but something far heavier. He thought of Gregory, whose voice had been almost gleeful in warning him. Could Gregory have known this would come? Could he have anticipated the reckoning that now loomed over Henry like a storm cloud, ready to unleash judgment? "I'll do anything," Henry stammered. Just tell me what I must do." The figure's lips curled into a shadow of a smile. "Anything." "Yes. I'll face it, accept it, endure it whatever it is." "Very well," the figure said, stepping closer. Its movement was fluid, deliberate, almost ceremonial. "Then you will witness the threads of your life unravel. You will see the consequences of every act, no matter how minor, and you will understand the cost you have deferred for so long." Before Henry could respond, The warehouse around him shifted. Shadows lengthened, walls seemed to bend, and the stacks of crates that had once been static became pathways, corridors, twisting mazes. He stumbled backward, heart racing, as the air grew thick and heavy, charged with the electricity of revelation. Images flashed before his eyes, flickers of memory interspersed with spectral reenactments. He saw Mr. Caldwell, a former client, clutching his ruined business statements, eyes wide with betrayal as Henry had maneuvered a hostile takeover that left him bankrupt. He saw Maria, the cleaning woman who had discovered an irregularity in a contract and been quietly fired, her livelihood destroyed. He saw anonymous competitors, frightened and confused, forced into financial ruin by subtle manipulations only he could orchestrate. And finally, he saw the warehouse itself, not as it appeared now, but as a theatre of his misdeeds, each corner a stage, each shadow a witness to his failings. "You see," the figure said, voice echoing, "all lives intersect. All actions ripple. You believed your choices were isolated. You believed no one would notice, no one would remember. Yet here we are. And now you must pay." Henry staggered backward, grasping the edge of a crate for support. His mind reeled. He had lived by cleverness, by maneuvering unseen, by ensuring that he remained always one step ahead of consequences. Yet here, in this shifting, spectral space, every deception was laid bare. Every slight, every act of self-interest, every moment of cruelty, illuminated, undeniable, inescapable. What is the payment?" he asked, voice barely a whisper, swallowed by the oppressive silence. The figure extended a hand, and the air itself seemed to ripple as if reality were bending toward its command. Understanding. Confrontation. Remembrance. The ledger demands acknowledgement. You will not simply leave. You will not simply survive. You will bear witness to the full weight of your life's choices, and you will endure it in a way your body and mind cannot yet comprehend. Henry fell to his knees, chest heaving, sweat mingling with the damp chill in the air. He wanted to cry, to scream, to flee, but even fleeing was impossible. Every path led him deeper into the warehouse, into the maze of his own misdeeds given form. "Please," he begged, "there must be some way to make amends. Some way to fix this." Amends. The figure's tone was almost scornful. Amends imply time, restitution, negotiation. You have ignored time, Henry. You have delayed restitution. You have bargained endlessly with your conscience. And now the negotiation is over. The walls of the warehouse seemed to close in, the shadows thickening, pulsating with unseen life. The footprints on the floor multiplied, circling him, forming patterns that seemed both random and deliberate. Each step he had taken in life had led him here, and now he could trace the path forward only in one direction, through confrontation. Henry's mind flashed to Gregory. Perhaps he had expected this, perhaps he had orchestrated it. Yet even that thought offered no comfort. Gregory, cunning and clever as he was, would not have known the true depth of what had awakened in the warehouse. Not even Gregory could control consequences that had become autonomous, living, and relentless. A sudden sound, a metallic clink, soft and deliberate, made Henry flinch. He turned slowly, flashlight sweeping the space, and caught sight of something new, a crate tipped over, its contents spilling across the floor. Papers fluttered like frightened birds, revealing ledgers, letters, and photographs. Each document was a testament to Henry's manipulations, a tangible record of his interference in the lives of others. He knelt, picking up a photograph. It was of Mr. Caldwell, once proud and successful, now staring at the camera with a mix of confusion and anguish. The ledger in Henry's hand, the photograph, the whispering figure, all converged into a single, undeniable truth. His life's work of subtle cruelty and calculated manipulation was now inescapable. "You see now, don't you?" the figure whispered, gliding closer. "You believed you could hide behind transactions, contracts, and cunning. You believed you could escape the natural order of accountability. But here, Henry, here, it is unavoidable. Every act returns to you, multiplied, distorted, perfected in its judgment." Henry dropped the photograph, covering his face with shaking hands. "I didn't realize." "You did," the figure said, voice a sharp whisper that cut through his defenses. You knew. You simply chose to ignore. You chose to defer the inevitable, believing yourself clever enough to sidestep it. But cleverness has limits, Henry. Limits you have now exceeded. Time itself seemed to warp. Minutes stretched into hours, moments elongated, and the warehouse transformed around him, the shadows forming a theater of judgment. Figures appeared, spectral yet undeniably real, replaying the consequences of Henry's choices. Financial ruin, emotional devastation, lives disrupted. Each spectral scene was vivid, undeniable, a mirror reflecting not who he wanted to be, but who he had truly been. Henry's knees hit the cold concrete floor again, heart pounding, mind spinning. I accept it, he whispered, voice hoarse. I understand. I will endure whatever is required. The figure nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then begin. And the warehouse responded. Shadows moved, forms solidified, whispers coalesced into voices, and Henry found himself at the center of a living tableau of reckoning. Each face, each event, each act he had set in motion demanded acknowledgement. And for the first time in decades, Henry Carrington understood the full weight of his life's choices. He felt the cold brush of spectral hands, the piercing gaze of countless eyes, the undeniable presence of the consequences he had sown. It was overwhelming, suffocating, yet illuminating. And through it all, a strange clarity emerged, understanding. Not relief, not redemption, understanding. The ledger was exact, impartial, and uncompromising. Hours, or perhaps days, passed, time lost all meaning. When Henry finally staggered from the warehouse, the first light of dawn breaking across the city streets, he was a changed man. Not weaker, not stronger, simply different, burdened yet enlightened, aware in a way he had never been before. The warehouse stood silent, shadows receding, as if satisfied that their lesson had been delivered. Henry walked through the foggy streets, coat damp, mind racing, knowing that this night would haunt him forever. Not because of fear, not because of supernatural terror, but because he now carried within him the undeniable knowledge of his own life, laid bare and judged. The city awoke around him, oblivious, yet he moved with the awareness that he had glimpsed the threads that connected all actions, all consequences. And somewhere in the distance, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper echoed. Remember, Henry the Ledger never forgets. The days that followed were a haze of unease. Henry Carrington walked through the city as though moving through a world slightly offset from reality. Streets he had once known like the back of his hand now seemed alien, lined with shadows that moved just at the edge of his vision. The warehouse had receded behind him physically, but the memory of it clung to him, persistent as a shadow that would not release its hold. The ledger he had glimpsed there, the accounting of every slight, every misdeed, pulsed in his mind, an omnipresent reminder that no action goes unnoticed. He returned to his office, hoping for normalcy, but the familiar sight of his desk, stacked with papers and ledgers, brought no comfort. Each document seemed to mock him, each contract a subtle accusation. Henry tried to focus on routine, emails, financial reports, minor negotiations, but his hands shook and his thoughts spiraled. Even Gregory's calls, once a source of reassurance, now seemed to carry an edge of dark amusement. "Henry," Gregory said on the phone that morning, "how are things after your little encounter?" Henry hesitated. I've seen things, Gregory. Things I can't explain." Gregory chuckled softly, the sound a low, almost sinister vibration. "Of course you have. That's the point, isn't it? You've always danced around consequences. Tonight, you were finally invited to the floor." Henry clenched his jaw. It wasn't an invitation, it was a warning. Something alive was there. "Perhaps," Gregory replied lightly. "Or perhaps it was merely your conscience given form. Either way, you've been made aware that the world does not forget, Henry. And neither do I." Henry hung up the phone, heart pounding, a cold sweat forming on his brow. He knew Gregory was right in one sense. The world, and the ledger it kept, did not forget. But Gregory's amusement hinted at knowledge Henry could not comprehend. What did Gregory know that Henry did not? And more importantly, what role had he played in orchestrating this reckoning? Determined to regain some sense of control, Henry revisited the warehouse the following night. The mist hung low over the streets, wrapping the city in a cloak of uncertainty. Each step toward the warehouse felt heavier, burdened with anticipation and dread. The building loomed, familiar yet menacing, its dark windows reflecting nothing, absorbing everything. Inside, the air was colder than he remembered, the dampness pressing against his skin like a living thing. The stain on the floor, the footprints, everything remained exactly as he had left it. But the sense of presence, that oppressive awareness, had intensified. Shadows pooled in the corners, darker, thicker, as though aware of his every movement. Henry moved cautiously, flashlight sweeping the warehouse. The figure appeared again, emerging from the darkness with deliberate grace. Its eyes glowed faintly, fixating on him with an intensity that made his stomach churn. "You've returned," it whispered, voice a mix of accusation and curiosity. "Why?" Henry swallowed, voice trembling. "I need to understand. I need to see this through. I can't ignore it." "Understand." The figure tilted its head, amused. "You have seen, Henry. You have felt. But understanding requires more than observation. It requires acknowledgement, acceptance, and, most importantly, action. You must confront not only the ledger, but yourself." The warehouse seemed to respond to these words. Crates shifted, shadows moved, and the air grew heavy with anticipation. Henry felt the weight of his past pressing down on him, memories of every manipulation, every betrayal, every deceit he had committed. Each one now demanded recognition, a reckoning that could not be deferred. He began to walk, tracing the footprints that had appeared mysteriously, as though they led him on a path predetermined by his own past. The figure followed silently, gliding through the shadows, a constant reminder that he could not escape. As he moved deeper into the warehouse, visions appeared. First, a young woman whose business Henry had undermined, staring at him with wide, accusing eyes. Then, a man he had coerced into selling property below market value, trembling as he handed over the deed. Each vision was vivid, detailed, impossible to ignore. The warehouse had become a living archive of his misdeeds, a theater in which he was both audience and performer. Henry stumbled, falling to his knees, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of his past. The figure knelt beside him, placing a spectral hand on his shoulder. "Do you see now? The ledger is impartial. It does not judge based on intent, only on action. And your actions have consequences, Henry Carrington. Consequences you can no longer evade." "I understand," he whispered, tears streaking his face. "I see it all. I accept it. But is there a way to make amends? To lessen the burden?" The figure shook its head. "Amends are illusions. You cannot undo the past. You can only acknowledge it, endure it, and learn from it. Each choice moving forward carries weight. Each action must be measured, deliberate, just. And even then, the ledger does not forget." A cold breeze swept through the warehouse, carrying with it whispers of voices long silenced. Henry realized with a shock that these were not mere echoes of memory, they were reminders, each one a fragment of his accumulated guilt and responsibility. The warehouse had become a repository of consequence, a place where the past manifested with tangible force. Henry rose unsteadily, determination mingling with fear. He could not flee. He could not ignore what had been revealed. He had to confront it, to navigate the maze of shadows and memories, to face the ledger in its entirety. Only then could he hope to move forward, however tenuously. The figure guided him deeper into the warehouse, through corridors that seemed to twist and elongate unnaturally. Each step brought new visions, new reminders of the lives he had impacted. Some were angry, some sorrowful, some confused. All were undeniably connected to him, threads woven into a tapestry of consequence that he had long refused to see. "You will not leave this place unchanged," the figure said softly. "Every act, every choice, every moment of denial has brought you here. And now, you must walk the path fully, without flinching, without excuse. Only then will the ledger release its hold, and even then, only partially. The weight remains, Henry. Always." Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time had lost meaning, and Henry moved through the warehouse, guided by the figure, confronted by the specters of his past. Each encounter forced him to acknowledge his actions, to feel the impact he had wrought, and to confront the uncomfortable truths he had long avoided. Pain, guilt, fear, all merged into a singular clarity: understanding. By dawn, Henry emerged from the warehouse physically unchanged, yet profoundly altered. His mind carried the weight of acknowledgement, his soul the burden of recognition. The city around him had not shifted, had not changed, yet he moved through it differently. He was aware of the threads connecting every life, every action, every consequence. The ledger, he knew, would never forget, and he would never be free of its silent, relentless judgment. As he walked through the misty streets, he understood that survival was not enough. Awareness alone was not enough. He had been given a glimpse of a larger truth, a force beyond comprehension, beyond law, beyond morality, consequence, absolute and impartial. And it would follow him, always, in every shadow, in every whisper, in every decision he made. The warehouse receded behind him, silent and watchful, but Henry knew it was not gone. It lingered in memory, in consciousness, in the unshakable understanding that every choice carries weight, every action leaves a mark, and every life touches another in ways that cannot always be predicted or controlled. And somewhere, deep within the city's mist, a whisper carried on the wind, soft and deliberate. The ledger never forgets, Henry, and neither do I. Henry returned to his apartment that morning with a weight pressing on his chest that no amount of sleep or distraction could lift. The city outside his window moved with casual indifference, cars inching through fog, pedestrians wrapped in coats and oblivion. To them, life continued as usual. But Henry now inhabited a parallel reality, one layered beneath the mundane, threaded with judgment and consequence. Every movement, every shadow, every sound seemed imbued with meaning. He could feel the warehouse, the ledger, and the figure watching him even from afar, as though their presence had seeped into the very fabric of his life. He tried to resume his routine, but the ledger's invisible tally followed him. Papers on his desk seemed to leer, reflecting the weight of obligations long deferred. Telephone calls, once a source of control, now brought subtle unease. Every interaction reminded him that choices were never neutral, that every word, every silence, carried weight. A knock at the door startled him. Henry hesitated before opening it, half expecting the figure from the warehouse to be standing there, but it was only a man in a grey overcoat, hat low over his eyes, briefcase clutched tightly. "Mr. Carrington?" the man asked. Voice flat, deliberate. "Yes, who are you?" The man straightened, revealing a card tucked inside his coat. "Alton Price. I believe we were introduced indirectly." Henry blinked. Price, the private investigator Gregory had suggested. Yet he had not expected him here, so soon, so deliberately. "Yes, you mentioned unusual cases." "Indeed," Price said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "But some cases require more than observation. Some require guidance, intervention, or correction. Your situation falls into all three categories." Henry gestured for him to sit, heart thudding. "I've seen things. I've felt consequences I cannot explain. The warehouse, the figure, the ledger, it's all real, isn't it?" Price nodded, eyes narrowing slightly. "Real in the sense that consequence is real. Actions have weight. Deceit, manipulation, betrayal, they accumulate until the balance demands attention. The warehouse, the figure, think of them as manifestations, yes, but also as instruments. You've been given a glimpse of what your life has wrought, and it is only the beginning." Henry's hands shook. "Only the beginning? What more could there be?" Price leaned forward. "The ledger is unending. Every act, every choice, every omission, it does not end with acknowledgement. Understanding is only the first step. Now comes the challenge of navigation, how to live under the awareness of your past and the certainty of its consequences. Some would crumble. Some would flee. Few survive intact." Henry swallowed hard. "And I want to survive. But how?" Price's eyes glinted. "Awareness alone will not suffice. You must act deliberately, with foresight, and with courage. You must confront those you have wronged, in whatever way possible, and you must anticipate future consequences in ways you never have before. And most importantly, you must trust yourself to endure what comes, knowing that some effects cannot be mitigated, only borne. Henry nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. The enormity of what he faced was overwhelming, but he felt a strange sense of resolve. If survival meant acknowledgement and confrontation, then he would endure. He had no choice. That night, Henry returned to the warehouse once more. The fog hung low, the air damp and suffocating. The building loomed, silent, expectant. Inside, the figure awaited, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Shadows twisted around it, coalescing into forms that seemed to stretch, breathe, and whisper. "You return," the figure said softly. "And yet, you carry a different air tonight. Acceptance, perhaps? Or merely resignation?" "Acceptance," Henry replied firmly, voice trembling but determined. "I understand now. I see what I have done, and I accept it. But I also wish to act, to face what I can, and to endure what I must." The figure tilted its head, observing him. "Very well. Then follow the path laid before you. Each step, each confrontation, will reveal more. You cannot control the ledger, but you can navigate it. And in doing so, perhaps you will learn the measure of your own character." As Henry moved deeper into the warehouse, the air thickened with shadows. The footprints on the floor multiplied, forming complex patterns that guided him through the maze of his own past. He encountered visions again, former colleagues, clients, acquaintances, all depicted in moments of betrayal or disappointment tied to his decisions. Each scene forced him to confront the human cost of his ambition, of his cunning, of his negligence. He saw Maria again, her eyes filled with quiet despair as she was dismissed without cause. He saw Mr. Caldwell, clutching the documents that had ruined him. Each vision was precise, undeniable, impossible to ignore. They were accusations, but also mirrors, reflecting his own failings back at him. "You understand now," the figure whispered, voice barely audible over the echoes of the warehouse. "This is the ledger's truth. Not punishment, not vengeance, but reflection. Recognition. The world balances itself, Henry, and you are now fully aware of the scales." Henry's knees hit the cold concrete, heart racing. I understand. I see it all. But it is overwhelming, unbearable at times." "Then endure," the figure replied simply. "Endurance is the currency of acknowledgement. Pain, regret, fear, they are the reminders that your actions matter. They are the ledger's insistence that nothing is trivial, and nothing escapes notice." The warehouse shifted again, shadows stretching into hallways and corridors, each one lined with new visions, new confrontations. Henry moved forward, each step a deliberate choice to face what had been hidden, to bear the weight of consequence, to navigate a maze that was both literal and metaphorical. Hours passed. Or perhaps minutes. Time had lost its meaning. Every vision, every whisper, every shadow etched itself into Henry's consciousness. He began to understand fully the scope of the ledger, the network of cause and effect that connected all actions, all decisions, all lives. And he understood, with a mixture of fear and clarity, that he could not undo the past. He could only navigate it, endure it, and carry its lessons forward. When he finally emerged from the warehouse, the first light of dawn was breaking over the city. The fog lingered, muted and heavy, but Henry walked with a sense of purpose. He had faced the ledger, encountered the figure, and acknowledged the weight of his life's choices. He had survived the confrontation, but survival was only the beginning. The city moved around him, indifferent, as always. People went about their routines, oblivious to the hidden forces of consequence that shaped their lives. Henry, however, now walked with awareness, carrying the ledger within him, a permanent companion that would shape his every decision. He knew the journey was far from over, that the figure's presence would always linger, and that the echoes of his past actions would continue to manifest in ways he could not predict. And yet, for the first time, he felt a measure of control, not over the ledger itself, but over his response to it. He had been shown the consequences of his life, forced to confront them fully, and had emerged with understanding. That understanding, Henry realized, was a weapon as well as a burden, and it would guide him in the days and nights to come. Somewhere, deep in the shadows of the warehouse, the figure watched him leave, its eyes faintly glowing. The ledger remained, impartial and silent, waiting for the next encounter, the next confrontation, the next acknowledgement. And Henry, stepping into the dawn-lit streets, understood that his life had changed irrevocably. The ledger never forgets. And neither, he knew, could he. The days following his return from the warehouse blurred into a tense continuum of unease and meticulous observation. Henry found himself unable to commit fully to normal routines. Even the simplest interactions carried a hidden weight. A conversation with a colleague about a pending contract, the innocuous passage of a pedestrian across the street, the casual rustle of papers on his desk, all seemed imbued with a subtle judgment. The ledger, he realized, had infiltrated every aspect of his consciousness. Its tally was invisible but undeniable, a quiet, constant companion whispering of debts unpaid and actions unaccounted for. It was during one of these uneventful afternoons, when the rain drummed softly against his office window, that Henry received a note slid under the door. The paper was thick, the ink a precise black, and the message simple: tonight. Warehouse. Do not falter. No signature, no explanation. Yet he knew instantly who had sent it. The figure. The ledger. Or perhaps the inevitable consequence itself, speaking in a language he had come to understand without words. By nightfall, Henry had gathered what few tools he thought necessary: flashlight, notebook, a pocket knife he had carried since his youth. The city outside was swathed in fog, lamplight refracted through the mist, turning streets into a dreamscape of shadow and distortion. Every step toward the warehouse heightened his awareness. Every puddle reflected not only his image but the spectral weight he now carried, a life of choices colliding with the present in ways he had never anticipated. Inside the warehouse, the familiar chill wrapped around him like a cloak. The faint metallic tang in the air, the shadows coiling along the walls, the footprints that had become a labyrinth, everything was unchanged, yet charged with expectation. He paused at the threshold, gathering his courage, feeling the invisible tether that bound him to this place and its reckoning. The figure materialized from the shadows, its eyes glowing faintly, reflecting the dim light in an almost hypnotic manner. It did not move toward him immediately, merely observed, as though measuring his resolve. "You have returned," it said, voice smooth, a mixture of reproach and intrigue. "And yet, you appear more burdened than before." "I am burdened," Henry admitted, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "But I also understand now. I see the consequences of my choices. I accept them. And I am ready to confront what must be confronted." The figure nodded slightly, a gesture both approving and chilling. "Then step forward, Henry. The ledger demands it. And tonight, you will witness truths deeper than before, truths you cannot unsee, consequences more intricate, more pervasive than your previous encounters have revealed." As Henry moved into the warehouse, the walls seemed to expand, stretching outward and upward. The shadows thickened, pooling into shapes almost human yet distorted, twisted forms representing those who had been affected by his manipulations. Each shadow whispered fragments of memory, accusations carried in tones simultaneously soft and cutting, a symphony of regret, anger, and sorrow. Henry listened, taking in each detail, feeling the impact of his life's actions as though they were physically striking him. The figure glided alongside him, leading him deeper into the maze of crates and shadows. "Every life you touch leaves a trace," it said softly. "Some traces fade, some linger, some consume. You have been blind to the full extent of your influence, and now you must walk through the entirety of your creation." Henry's mind raced. Faces of former clients, colleagues, and casual acquaintances appeared vividly in spectral form. He saw them in moments of despair, confusion, and anger directly linked to his decisions. He had thought his influence limited, subtle, but now he understood its reach. Every act, even those he had considered minor or inconsequential, had radiated outward, affecting others in ways he had never predicted. And now, he had to witness it fully. He paused at a stack of overturned crates, and the shadows there coalesced into a tableau of one particularly painful memory. A young assistant he had manipulated to cover for a financial discrepancy, only for her to be dismissed publicly, her reputation irreparably damaged. She stared at him, spectral eyes wide with silent accusation, unable to speak yet communicating everything he needed to understand. Henry's throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. "I see it," he whispered. "I understand now. I have wronged them. And I must bear it." The figure nodded. "Yes. Bearing is the key. Understanding without endurance is meaningless. You must live with this knowledge, allowing it to inform every action henceforth. Only then can the ledger's judgment be partially reconciled." Henry pressed on, moving through the warehouse like a pilgrim walking through a cathedral of his own making. Each shadow, each vision, each whisper was a reminder of his failings and the intricate web of consequences his life had created. He began to see connections he had never considered, small acts cascading into major outcomes, minor manipulations leading to profound suffering. It was a network of cause and effect, a living embodiment of his decisions, and it demanded acknowledgement. Hours passed. Time itself seemed to fracture within the warehouse, minutes stretching into eternity, moments folding upon one another. Henry's legs ached, his heart raced, but he continued, driven by a mix of fear, determination, and a grim understanding that retreat was impossible. The figure led him to a central chamber, where the shadows formed a massive circle, enclosing him. The air grew heavy, electric, as if the very space pulsed with the weight of his life's ledger. In the center of the circle, a new vision emerged, a younger version of himself, smiling, ambitious, confident, oblivious to the ripples his actions would create. It was a confrontation not with others, but with the man he had been, the choices he had made, and the consequences he had ignored. "You see now," the figure whispered, "how far the ledger reaches, how inexorable its accounting. You cannot flee it, deny it, or bargain with it. You can only witness, understand, and endure." Henry fell to his knees, chest heaving, mind reeling. I understand. I accept. I will endure. I will face the consequences. All of them." The figure's eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the intensity of the shadows around them. "Then rise, Henry Carrington. You have begun the process of true acknowledgement. The ledger is vast, and the journey long, but tonight you have taken a step that many never dare. Remember that understanding is not the end, it is the foundation. Every choice from this moment forward carries weight amplified by awareness. Act wisely." Henry rose unsteadily, feeling the weight of the warehouse, the shadows, and the ledger pressing upon him. He realized that survival alone was insufficient. True endurance required continuous vigilance, constant awareness, and the acceptance that consequences were not fleeting, they were enduring, living, and inescapable. As he exited the warehouse, the first light of dawn broke across the city, filtering through the mist and illuminating streets that seemed both familiar and alien. The fog clung to the ground, swirling around his feet, as if reluctant to release him from the lessons of the night. Henry walked slowly, each step deliberate, aware of the invisible tally that now accompanied him in every action, every decision, every thought. He knew that the figure remained, watching, guiding, ensuring that he would not forget the ledger's truth. The warehouse would always be a presence in his mind, a reminder that life was not a series of isolated acts, but a complex web of cause and effect. And he understood, with a mix of fear and resolve, that the ledger's influence would shape every moment henceforth. Somewhere in the shadows, a whisper followed him, "Endure, Henry, and remember. The ledger never forgets." And for the first time in his life, Henry felt the weight of true understanding, carrying with it both the terror and clarity of acknowledgement. He would never be the same, and the consequences of his actions would continue to unfold, tangible and unyielding, in ways both seen and unseen. The journey was far from over, but he had taken a decisive step into the intricate, inexorable web of his own creation. The city was quieter that evening than Henry had ever known it. A dense fog settled over streets and alleyways, muting sound and blurring shapes into ghostly silhouettes. Henry moved through it deliberately, aware of every footfall, every breath, every shadow stretching along the pavement. It was as though the world itself had conspired to mirror the warehouse, to remind him that the ledger was no longer confined to that dark, cavernous space. It followed him, always present, whispering in the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a siren, the faint creak of a lamppost swinging in the wind. He arrived at a small cafe, a place he had once frequented casually, where the hum of conversation and the clink of cups had once been comforting. Now, every casual interaction felt charged, every glance heavy with unintended consequence. The barista, unaware of her significance in his ledger, handed him a cup of coffee. He hesitated, studying her face, remembering an offhand remark he had made months ago. An insult he had considered trivial, yet in the ledger, it had been a note, a ripple, a small act that shaped perception, damaged confidence, created unforeseen fallout. Henry's hands shook slightly as he took the cup. "I see you," he whispered under his breath, more to himself than to the barista. He understood now that seeing and acknowledging were not the same, that every moment carried weight, and awareness was only the beginning. Leaving the cafe, he wandered through streets that had become alien landscapes. Every reflection in a shop window, every distorted shadow cast by a flickering streetlight, seemed to reveal not just himself but the web of lives he had touched, some harmed, some indifferent, some quietly grateful, though he had never noticed. The ledger, invisible yet insistent, pressed on him, demanding recognition, endurance, and, above all, honesty. Eventually, he found himself back at the warehouse, drawn as though by magnetism. The fog thickened, curling around the building like spectral fingers, and the metallic tang in the air was stronger than ever. Henry hesitated at the threshold, breathing deeply, feeling the tension coil tight within him. The warehouse was waiting, expectant, a living theatre of consequence. Inside, the figure awaited. Its eyes glowed softly in the dim light, reflecting a presence that was at once comforting and terrifying. "You return," it said, voice smooth and deliberate. "And yet, you bring with you something new, resolve, perhaps, or curiosity, or fear tempered by understanding." Henry nodded, voice steady. "I have returned to face what must be faced, to acknowledge fully, to endure what I now understand is inevitable." The figure's lips curled in something like approval. "Then proceed. There are lessons still to be learned, shadows yet unexamined. You have begun to navigate the ledger, but the ledger is vast, intricate, and ever-expanding. You must walk its paths carefully." Henry moved deeper into the warehouse. Shadows shifted and elongated, coalescing into scenes he had never fully confronted. A young man he had dismissed abruptly from a project, his potential unfulfilled, stared at him accusingly. A client whose trust he had manipulated, resulting in a cascade of losses, confronted him silently, eyes wide with incredulous disappointment. Each vision was precise, unyielding, a manifestation of cause and effect Henry had ignored for years. "You see now," the figure whispered, "how subtlety becomes consequence, how small acts spiral into outcomes beyond your control. You have been blind to the ledger's complexity, but now you walk its corridors knowingly." Henry knelt, chest heaving. "I see it. I accept it. I will endure. But what of those whose lives I cannot repair? Whose suffering cannot be undone?" The figure's gaze was unwavering. "Endurance is not redemption. Recognition is not atonement. You cannot rewrite the past. You can only witness, acknowledge, and allow awareness to guide your future actions. Pain and consequence will persist, but you must act with care, with understanding, with deliberate intent. That is the path forward." Henry rose, moving toward another corner of the warehouse. The shadows there formed a tableau of his early career, when ambition had overtaken ethics, and minor manipulations had seemed harmless, almost clever. Now, with the ledger's impartial gaze upon him, he saw the full scope of these choices, the cascading consequences, the unintended harm, the subtle threads of cause and effect that had woven through dozens of lives. Each vision forced him to confront a different aspect of himself: vanity, pride, greed, negligence. The warehouse was no longer merely a repository of external consequences, but a mirror reflecting the deepest recesses of his character. He felt raw, exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely illuminated. The ledger demanded nothing less than full awareness, unflinching honesty, and total endurance. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time had become a distorted rhythm, a pulse synchronized with the shadows and whispers. Henry continued through the maze, confronting visions, absorbing lessons, internalizing the weight of the ledger. He understood now that survival was not enough. Awareness alone was insufficient. True endurance required living in constant acknowledgement of consequence, allowing it to shape thought, speech, and action. Finally, he reached the center of the warehouse, where the figure awaited once more. Shadows coalesced around it, forming an almost tangible presence, a living testament to the ledger's reach and precision. "You have walked far," the figure said. "You have faced what many would flee. You have acknowledged and endured. And yet, this is not the end." The ledger continues, its reach infinite, its assessment impartial. You have begun the journey, but it is ongoing, inexorable, and unyielding. Henry bowed his head. "I understand. I will carry this awareness with me. I will act deliberately, endure, and face each consequence as it arises." The figure's eyes glowed brighter, a subtle acknowledgement of his resolve. "Then leave, for now. Step into the world with the ledger in mind, and remember that every choice matters, every act reverberates, and every life touched carries its own reflection. You cannot escape, you cannot deny, but you can navigate with understanding." Henry exited the warehouse, stepping into the misty dawn. The city was quiet, streets wet with rain, fog clinging to lampposts and pavement. He walked slowly, each footfall deliberate, each breath measured. He understood that the ledger would never release him, that the weight of consequence would persist, and that he would carry the awareness of every choice, every act, every omission, forever. Somewhere in the shadows, the figure's presence lingered, silent yet insistent. The ledger remained, impartial and relentless, an invisible force shaping reality. And Henry, moving through the city with cautious deliberation, knew that his life had irrevocably changed. He would never be free of the ledger's influence, never escape the weight of his choices, and never forget the lessons learned within the warehouse's cold, shadowed walls. The fog thickened around him, a silent companion, as he moved toward a future forever altered. The city awoke slowly, indifferent, unaware of the invisible accounting at work within its streets, within its buildings, within its citizens. But Henry knew. He would always know. And the ledger would always know. In the distance, a whisper carried on the wind, almost lost amidst the rustle of leaves and the hum of the city. "Endure, Henry, and remember. The ledger never forgets." Henry paused, listening, letting the words sink into him. For the first time, he felt a strange clarity beneath the weight, a sense of purpose forged from acknowledgement, endurance, and understanding. He walked forward, steps measured, mind sharpened, aware that every action henceforth would be observed, assessed, and recorded by an unseen force whose patience and impartiality were infinite. And so, he continued, moving through the mist and the waking city, carrying the ledger within him, silent, insistent, unyielding. Henry's nights had become restless, haunted by shadows that seemed to move even beyond the warehouse. Sleep offered no respite. Dreams were now corridors of consequence, where past decisions twisted into grotesque forms, demanding attention and recognition. He had begun to carry a notebook, scribbling observations, reflections, and strategies. Every interaction during the day was meticulously logged, every choice analyzed, and yet the ledger's weight persisted, as though no amount of preparation could ever suffice. On one particularly fog-laden evening, he decided to confront a part of his past long avoided, the matter of Jonathan Cleary, a former business partner who had been ruined by Henry's cunning maneuvers early in his career. Henry had dismissed Jonathan with a smile, believing the loss trivial, an acceptable collateral in his pursuit of advancement. Yet now, with the ledger ever present, he could feel the lingering echo of Jonathan's despair, a shadow that had never dissipated. He found Jonathan living in a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city, far from the glittering offices and towering buildings Henry now occupied. The place was quiet, furnished sparsely, with the faint smell of damp walls and aged paper. Jonathan looked older, lines of worry etched into his face, and his eyes held a wary suspicion as Henry knocked. "Henry?" Jonathan asked cautiously, voice tinged with disbelief. "I wasn't expecting you." "I know," Henry admitted, hands trembling slightly. "I've come to acknowledge what I did, to confront the consequences I never considered." Jonathan's gaze sharpened. "After all these years, why now?" Henry took a deep breath, attempting to steady his voice. "I've been confronted by something I cannot fully explain. A ledger, a witness I've seen the full weight of my actions, Jonathan. And I cannot move forward without acknowledging the harm I caused you, Jonathan studied him silently, suspicion mixing with curiosity, until finally he gestured toward a chair. Sit. Let's talk. The conversation was long and uncomfortable. Henry listened as Jonathan recounted the ways in which his career, personal life, and mental state had been affected by Henry's manipulations. Each word was a hammer strike, each revelation a mirror to the arrogance and recklessness of his past self. Henry did not interrupt. He simply listened, absorbing the consequences, allowing the ledger to register in every detail, every nuance. I can't undo what's been done, Henry said finally, voice low. I can't repair everything, but I wanted you to know I am aware. I accept it. And I will carry this awareness forward. Jonathan studied him for a long moment, eyes searching. It's something, I suppose. At least you're facing it now. He shook his head, a wry smile appearing despite the tension. Better late than never, I guess. Henry left Jonathan's apartment with a strange mixture of relief and lingering dread. A single encounter could not erase decades of consequences, but acknowledgement was a step. He understood that the ledger was not a static record. It was living, expanding with each interaction, each reflection, each act of recognition. He had faced one shadow, but countless others awaited, each demanding attention, each refusing to be ignored. That night, the warehouse called again. Henry returned, driven by a compulsion that he could neither suppress nor rationalize. The mist clung to him like a second skin, cold and persistent, as he approached the familiar door. Inside, the air was heavier than ever, charged with anticipation and memory. The figure awaited, still silent, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. You have acted, it said finally, voice measured, deliberate. You have confronted one thread of consequence, acknowledged one life impacted by your choices. Yet the ledger remains vast, intricate, and impartial. Do you understand the scale of what lies before you? Henry nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. I understand. I see now that acknowledgement is only the first step, that endurance is required, and that my actions moving forward must be deliberate, conscious, and just. Good, the figure replied. Then proceed. Tonight, you will confront not only the ledger of others' lives, but the ledger of your own. You will witness what ambition, pride, and neglect have wrought within yourself. The warehouse seemed to respond to the command. Shadows shifted, forming shapes and scenes from Henry's own memories, moments of ethical compromise, lapses in judgment, and subtle betrayals. He watched himself, young and confident, ignoring small harms, rationalizing decisions for personal gain. Each vision pressed upon him with tangible weight, a physical reminder that the ledger accounted for intent and impact alike. You see now, the figure said softly, gliding beside him, how your own life is inscribed upon the ledger. Each thought, each choice, each omission has consequences not only outward but inward. Recognition of your own complicity is essential. Without it, endurance is incomplete. Henry trembled but faced the visions fully, allowing each memory to imprint upon him. Shame, guilt, and clarity intermingled, creating a potent mixture that burned with revelation. He saw the arrogance that had led him to manipulate colleagues, the callous rationalizations that justified harm, and the subtle cruelties that had gone unnoticed, even by himself. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time had little meaning. Henry moved through the warehouse, navigating shadows and memories, acknowledging the ledger in its entirety, both external and internal. The figure watched silently, a guide and witness, its glow a constant, calming presence amid the storm of consequence. Finally, Henry reached the center of the warehouse. The shadows coalesced into a tableau that encompassed his entire life, past actions and their ripples extending outward into the lives of countless others. The ledger, once invisible, was now palpable, its weight pressing upon him, demanding acknowledgement, endurance, and deliberate navigation. I see it, Henry whispered, voice trembling but clear. I understand. I accept. I will endure, and I will act with awareness. I cannot undo the past, but I can navigate the present, conscious of every choice and its consequence. The figure's eyes glowed brighter, an acknowledgement of his resolve. Then leave, Henry Carrington. Step into the world with awareness as your guide. The ledger is impartial, unyielding, and infinite. You will continue to confront its implications, but you have begun the path of true understanding. Remember, the ledger never forgets, and you will never be free of its influence. But you are now equipped to navigate it with integrity, however difficult the journey may be. Henry exited the warehouse into the misty streets, dawn breaking over the city. Fog clung to the pavement, wrapping streetlights and buildings in spectral veils. Each step he took felt deliberate, informed by awareness, guided by acknowledgement. He knew the ledger would follow him, always present, always demanding recognition, but he felt a measure of preparedness. He would endure. He would navigate. He would act deliberately, aware of consequences, and carry the lessons learned from the warehouse into every choice henceforth. As he moved through the waking city, a whisper followed him on the wind, faint yet unmistakable. Endure, Henry, and remember. The ledger never forgets. Henry listened, letting the words settle into his mind, solidifying the understanding that had taken form over countless nights of reflection, confrontation, and acknowledgement. The journey was far from over, and countless shadows awaited, but he had begun the difficult, unending task of living consciously, aware of the ledger's impartial accounting. With each footstep, each breath, each choice, he carried the weight of consequence, fully recognized, fully understood, and fully endured. And for the first time, despite the shadows, the fear, and the relentless ledger, he felt a strange, tenuous sense of control. An awareness that, though he could not undo the past, he could navigate the present with deliberate integrity. Henry awoke to a city bathed in the grey pallor of a damp morning. The fog had not lifted, clinging stubbornly to streets, rooftops, and the skeletal framework of lampposts. Even the sunlight, weak and filtered, seemed hesitant to pierce the mist. He dressed in silence, every movement deliberate, every choice conscious, each step measured to avoid unnecessary disturbance. The ledger was never far from his thoughts, its presence constant, impartial, and undeniable. Today's task was a delicate one. He had learned that acknowledgement alone was insufficient. Action was now required. Some shadows demanded confrontation, some required redress, and some merely required careful observation to avoid exacerbating past harms. Henry carried his notebook, filled with names, dates, and subtle connections, a roadmap through the complex web of lives he had touched, intentionally or otherwise. He arrived at the home of Margot Lindsley, a former client whose trust he had exploited, resulting in financial and personal ruin. Margot's modest residence was surrounded by overgrown hedges, the gate squeaking as he pushed it open. He hesitated, breath catching in his throat. The ledger's tally pressed upon him, reminding him that intentions alone could not absolve action. He had to confront her, acknowledge his impact, and navigate the delicate balance of accountability without causing further harm. Margot opened the door, surprise and wariness etched across her face. "Henry, it's been some time," she said cautiously. "I know," Henry replied softly. "I've come because I must acknowledge what I did. I cannot undo the past, but I must confront it, and I hope I can at least offer some recognition, some measure of accountability." Margot studied him, suspicion mingled with cautious curiosity. "I don't know what to say. You hurt me, severely. Why now? Why after all these years?" Henry swallowed, the weight of his conscience pressing on him. "I have seen the consequences of my actions in ways I never fully understood. The ledger, the figure, I cannot explain it fully, but I now recognize the full scope of harm I caused. I do not seek forgiveness, only to acknowledge, to witness, and to endure the impact of my choices." The conversation that followed was long, tense, and uncomfortable. Margot recounted the ripple effects of his manipulations, financial loss, damaged reputation, and strained personal relationships. Henry listened, absorbing each detail, committing every nuance to memory. He understood that acknowledgement was a starting point, not an end point. Endurance required living with the knowledge, allowing it to shape future decisions. When he left, the fog had thickened, wrapping the city in silence and shadow. Every step was deliberate, every breath a conscious act of endurance. The warehouse awaited, calling him once more. Henry returned, compelled by a force he could neither suppress nor fully understand. The mist clung to the building, swirling around its doors as though reluctant to allow entry, yet he pressed forward. Inside, the air was colder than ever, thick with anticipation. The figure awaited him, its eyes glowing faintly, reflecting the dim light and the weight of countless consequences. "You have acted," it said softly. "You have confronted one thread of consequence, acknowledged one life impacted by your choices. Yet the ledger is vast, intricate, and impartial. Do you understand that your journey is ongoing?"
I do, Henry replied.
Acknowledgement is not enough. I must endure, act deliberately, and remain aware. I cannot undo the past, but I can navigate the present, conscious of every choice and its consequences. The figure inclined its head. "Then proceed. Tonight, you will witness not only the consequences of your actions upon others, but the subtle reverberations that continue unseen, rippling through lives in ways even you cannot predict. The ledger is patient, and it allows no omission to escape recognition." Henry moved deeper into the warehouse. Shadows shifted, forming intricate patterns, coalescing into scenes that spanned months, years, and decades of his life. Former colleagues, clients, and acquaintances appeared in moments of vulnerability, anger, and quiet despair, all consequences of his ambition, negligence, and manipulation. Each scene was precise, a hauntingly accurate reflection of cause and effect. "You see now," the figure whispered, "that even minor actions carry weight. Intentions are measured, impact is counted, and the ledger records all without prejudice. Understanding requires endurance, and endurance requires facing truths you would rather ignore." Henry's chest tightened. I understand. I accept. I will endure. But some of this, it is almost too much to bear." The figure's eyes glowed brighter, a faint luminescence that illuminated the warehouse's shadows. "Endurance is not comfort. Recognition is not solace. You cannot undo what is done. You can only witness, acknowledge, and carry forward awareness into every future act. The ledger's impartiality ensures balance, and you are now part of its calculus." Hours, or perhaps moments, passed as Henry navigated the labyrinthine corridors of shadow and consequence. Each vision pressed upon him, every memory and interaction demanding recognition. He saw the subtle betrayals, the unintentional harms, the miscalculations, and the deliberate manipulations, all interwoven into a web of cause and effect. The ledger's impartial tally weighed on him, a constant presence in every heartbeat, every breath, every choice. Finally, Henry reached the center of the warehouse. Shadows coalesced into a vast, encompassing tableau that captured the entirety of his known actions and their consequences. The figure's glow intensified, illuminating the intricate web of cause and effect that extended far beyond his immediate perception. "I see it," Henry whispered, voice trembling but resolute. "I understand. I accept. I will endure, navigate, and act with awareness. I cannot undo the past, but I can carry its lessons forward and approach each future decision deliberately." The figure inclined its head once more. "Then leave, Henry Carrington. Step into the world with awareness as your guide. The ledger is infinite, impartial, and unyielding. You will continue to confront consequences, both visible and hidden, but you have begun the path of true understanding. Remember, the ledger never forgets, and you are now fully accounted within its design." Henry stepped out into the foggy streets, dawn breaking slowly over the city. Each step was deliberate, each breath measured, each choice informed by the weight of awareness. The ledger followed him, unseen yet undeniable, a constant companion shaping perception, judgment, and action. He understood that life was no longer a series of casual decisions but a complex web of interrelated consequences, each ripple extending outward and inward, touching lives and shaping futures. The city stirred around him, indifferent to the invisible tally guiding his steps, unaware of the spectral accounting that shaped every interaction. Henry walked with a newfound gravity, conscious that every act, however small, carried weight beyond immediate perception. The ledger's presence was constant, impartial, and relentless, and he would navigate it with deliberate awareness. Somewhere in the mist, a whisper followed him, faint yet unmistakable: "Endure, Henry, and remember. The ledger never forgets." Henry paused, letting the words settle into his consciousness, solidifying the understanding that acknowledgement and endurance were inseparable. The journey was far from over, and countless shadows awaited his attention. Yet he felt a measure of clarity beneath the burden, a guiding awareness forged from confrontation, reflection, and acceptance. With each step, he moved through the fog-laden city, carrying the ledger within him, silent, insistent, and unyielding. And for the first time, despite the fear, the weight, and the relentless scrutiny of consequence, Henry felt the faintest glimmer of agency, the ability to navigate the world with awareness, guided by understanding, and forever mindful of the ledger's impartial record. The nights had grown colder, and Henry found himself walking through streets coated in frost, the fog mingling with a biting chill that seemed to seep into his very bones. Each breath formed clouds in the dim streetlight, and every step echoed with a hollow resonance, as if the city itself were counting the rhythm of consequence alongside him. He carried the notebook everywhere now, filling its pages with observations, reflections, and incremental strategies for addressing the infinite ledger of his actions. Even small encounters required vigilance, every gesture loaded with responsibility. He paused before the residence of a man named Victor Holstead, a former client whose fortunes had been irrevocably altered by Henry's business maneuvers years ago. Victor had lost his job, his home, and much of his pride, all subtle manipulations at the time, rationalized by Henry as necessary for progress. Now, facing him, Henry understood the full weight of those choices. He could no longer view them as simple or inconsequential. The ledger demanded recognition and deliberate acknowledgement. Victor opened the door, brow furrowed in suspicion, lips pressed into a thin line. "Henry, it's been a long time. What brings you here?" "I've come to acknowledge the consequences of my actions," Henry said carefully, hands folded, notebook tucked beneath his arm. "I cannot undo the past, but I am here to confront it, to face the impact of my choices, and to act consciously moving forward." Victor's gaze softened slightly, curiosity mixed with hesitation. "After all these years, why now?" Henry drew a deep breath. "I have been confronted with something beyond understanding. It has forced me to see the full weight of my actions, the ledger, the figure. It has made me realize the ripples I've caused, the lives affected. I must face them, one by one, or I cannot move forward at all." They spoke at length, the conversation layered with tension and reflection. Victor recounted the subtle ways his life had been redirected, the financial losses, the professional setbacks, and the personal humiliations. Henry listened without interruption, each story a palpable thread woven into the ledger, each recollection a note added to an invisible but undeniable score. He understood that acknowledgement alone was insufficient. True endurance required carrying the awareness forward into every subsequent action. When he left Victor's apartment, the city was quieter than before, muted by the persistent fog and the cold weight of reflection. He knew that the ledger's reach extended far beyond these individual confrontations. It accounted for indirect consequences, hidden reverberations, the subtleties of intent, and the impact of negligence. The path before him was infinite, yet he felt the urgent need to continue, to confront, to endure. The warehouse loomed in the distance, calling him once more. He entered the familiar threshold, where the shadows pooled in anticipation, ready to manifest lessons he had yet to fully internalize. The figure awaited him, luminous eyes glinting in the dimness, reflecting the weight of countless actions and consequences. "You have acted," the figure said, voice calm, deliberate, and yet charged with authority. "You have confronted threads of consequence, acknowledged the impact of your choices, and yet the ledger remains. It is impartial, unyielding, and infinite. Do you comprehend the scope of what lies ahead?"
"I do," Henry replied.
Acknowledgement is only the beginning. Endurance is necessary. Action must be deliberate, conscious, and responsible. I cannot undo the past, but I can navigate the present with awareness of the ledger's impartiality. "Good," the figure said, a faint nod of approval. "Tonight, you will confront not just the consequences of your actions upon others, but the subtle repercussions upon your own psyche. The ledger is as much a reflection of your internal state as it is a record of external effects. Prepare yourself." Henry moved deeper into the warehouse, his steps echoing against the concrete floors. Shadows shifted, coalescing into vivid tableaus of his past mistakes, manipulations, and overlooked consequences. He witnessed colleagues who had been undermined, partners who had suffered losses, friends who had been deceived, and casual acquaintances who had been inadvertently hurt. Each scene pressed upon him, a tangible manifestation of the ledger's impartiality. "You see now," the figure whispered, gliding beside him, "how your life has been intertwined with others. Minor decisions accumulate into consequences, small acts ripple outward, and the ledger observes all without bias. Recognition alone is not sufficient, endurance is required, and true understanding demands the courage to witness without evasion." Henry's chest tightened, a mixture of shame, fear, and clarity flooding his senses. "I understand. I accept. I will endure. I cannot undo the past, but I will live consciously, aware of every decision and its repercussions." The shadows intensified, forming a swirling panorama that included not only those he had directly affected but also the indirect consequences of his ambitions and negligence. He saw families disrupted, careers altered, lives constrained, all reverberations of actions he had once considered trivial. Each revelation reinforced the ledger's impartiality and reminded him that his endurance was the only path forward. Hours passed, or perhaps moments, the warehouse existing outside conventional time. Henry navigated the labyrinth of memory and consequence, absorbing each lesson, witnessing every shadow, and allowing the ledger to imprint its full weight upon his consciousness. His understanding deepened with every encounter, every acknowledgement, every moment of confrontation. Finally, he reached the center of the warehouse. The figure stood there, eyes luminous, surrounded by shadows that formed a complete tapestry of his life's impact. Henry felt the enormity of the ledger's impartial judgment pressing upon him, demanding recognition and acceptance. "I see it," Henry whispered, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "I understand. I accept. I will endure. I cannot erase the past, but I can navigate the present with awareness and act deliberately in the future." The figure inclined its head, a faint glow illuminating the intricate web of shadows. "Then leave, Henry Carrington. Step into the world with awareness as your guide. The ledger is infinite, impartial, and unyielding. You will continue to confront its consequences, both seen and unseen, but you have begun the path of true understanding. Remember, the ledger never forgets, and you are now fully integrated into its design." Henry stepped out into the city, the first light of dawn diffusing through the fog. Each movement was deliberate, each thought measured, each choice informed by the weight of consequence. The ledger followed him, silent, impartial, and unyielding, a constant companion shaping perception, judgment, and action. Life was no longer a series of casual decisions but a web of interconnected effects, each choice carrying the potential for significant impact. The city stirred, oblivious to the invisible accounting that guided Henry's footsteps, unaware of the spectral ledger that recorded every act and its ripple effects. Yet Henry felt a measure of clarity beneath the burden, a faint but palpable sense of agency that allowed him to navigate with awareness, intentionality, and deliberate care. A whisper followed him, carried on the wind, "Endure, Henry, and remember. The ledger never forgets." Henry paused, letting the words settle into his consciousness. He understood that acknowledgement and endurance were inseparable, that the journey was far from over, and that countless shadows still awaited attention. Yet he felt a fragile but steadfast sense of purpose, to live consciously, to act deliberately, and to navigate the world with the ledger's impartiality guiding his every step. With each footfall, each breath, each decision, he carried the ledger within him, silent, insistent, and unyielding. And though fear and uncertainty lingered, he felt for the first time a semblance of control, a measure of clarity forged from confrontation, acknowledgement, and the resolve to endure. The fog thickened around him as he moved through the streets, a spectral companion wrapping the city in shadow. The ledger would never release him, never allow forgetfulness, never permit denial. Yet Henry walked on, deliberate, aware, and prepared to meet every consequence with conscious endurance. The journey was far from complete, but he had taken a decisive step into understanding, responsibility, and the relentless impartiality of the ledger. The dawn was brittle, grey, and sharp, slicing through the city like a promise of clarity after endless fog. Henry moved with a measured pace, notebook in hand, cataloguing the subtle echoes of his choices, the whispers of consequence trailing behind him like ghosts. The ledger, though invisible, pressed upon him constantly, reminding him that every act, every word, every inattention had its tally. It was no longer a distant, abstract presence. It had become an intimate companion, inseparable from his very perception of reality. Today, he was to confront the culmination of all threads, the intertwined consequences that had rippled through lives, binding others to actions he had long dismissed. His steps carried him through streets he had once navigated without thought, observing faces, noting gestures, and perceiving the subtle ways his previous ambitions had shaped destinies. He paused outside a small, modest theatre, the marquee dim and flickering. Inside, countless lives had intersected, some enriched, some irrevocably altered by Henry's past decisions in the arts, investments, and social ventures. He knew this space held yet another thread of the ledger's tally. Inside, the theatre was silent except for the faint hum of electricity and the creak of the old floorboards. Shadows pooled in corners, forming shapes that seemed to anticipate his arrival. The figure awaited him, luminous and still, its presence at once comforting and terrifying. "You have walked far, Henry Carrington," it said, voice smooth yet piercing, "and yet the ledger is never complete. Today, you will confront not only the consequences of others' lives, but the ultimate consequences of your own ambition and fear." Henry nodded, swallowing the tremor in his throat. "I am ready," he said, voice steady despite the weight pressing upon him. "I understand that acknowledgement and endurance are inseparable. I cannot undo the past, but I can face it, understand it, and navigate the present deliberately." "Good," the figure replied. "Tonight, you will witness the full spectrum of your actions, those remembered, those forgotten, and those unseen. You will see the ledger in its totality, and you will understand its impartiality." As Henry moved deeper into the theatre, the shadows shifted and multiplied, forming intricate tableaus of his life. There were colleagues undermined, clients deceived, friends betrayed, casual acquaintances subtly harmed, and the unforeseen repercussions that had quietly spread like tendrils. He watched himself, young and arrogant, confident in decisions made without full awareness. He observed the subtle patterns of neglect, the unintended harms, the manipulations rationalized as clever strategy. Each scene pressed upon him with tangible weight, forcing him to confront what he had ignored, dismissed, or refused to see. "You see now," the figure whispered, following him silently, "the ledger does not merely record external actions. It observes intent, consequence, and omission. Each ripple spreads farther than you imagine, and the ledger notes all without prejudice or mercy. Recognition alone is insufficient. You must endure, internalize, and act consciously moving forward." Henry's chest tightened, but he faced each vision without retreat. Shame, guilt, and understanding intermingled in a torrent of emotion that left him raw yet lucid. He absorbed the lessons, witnessed the outcomes, and allowed the ledger to register the fullness of his awareness. He understood that endurance was not passive. It required ongoing, deliberate vigilance and the willingness to navigate life with a constant acknowledgement of consequence. Hours, or perhaps moments, passed. The theatre seemed to exist outside the normal flow of time, a liminal space where memory, action, and consequence converged. Henry walked among the shadows, touching each tableau, acknowledging each ripple, and committing fully to the weight of awareness. The figure remained beside him, an ever-present guide and witness, its glow a steady light amid the shifting darkness. Finally, he reached the center of the theatre. The shadows coalesced into a singular tableau that encompassed the totality of his life and its impact on others. Faces, moments, failures, successes, all intertwined into a complex web that reflected both intention and consequence. The ledger's weight pressed upon him fully, demanding recognition, acceptance, and endurance. "I see it," Henry whispered, voice trembling yet resolute. "I understand. I accept. I will endure. I cannot undo what has been done, but I can navigate the present with awareness and act with deliberate intention in every future choice." The figure inclined its head, eyes luminous, a subtle approval emanating from its presence. "Then leave, Henry Carrington. Step into the world with awareness as your guide. The ledger is impartial, infinite, and unyielding. You are now fully integrated into its measure. You will continue to confront consequences, both seen and unseen, but you have begun the path of true understanding. Remember always, The ledger never forgets. Henry stepped out of the theatre into the early morning streets, the city awakening slowly around him. Each step was deliberate, each breath conscious, each thought informed by the weight of awareness. He understood that the ledger would never release him, that its impartial record would follow him through every interaction, every decision, every moment of life. He was no longer the man who moved through the world unaware. He was fully accounted, fully conscious, and fully responsible for the web of consequences in which he was entangled. The fog lingered, curling around streetlights and the edges of buildings, a spectral companion to his journey. Henry walked with deliberate care, observing the nuances of life, considering the implications of each action, and remaining vigilant against the subtle temptations of negligence, pride, or thoughtlessness. He carried the ledger within him, silent but insistent, guiding him toward a path of deliberate, conscientious living. Somewhere in the distance, a whisper floated on the wind, "Endure, Henry, and remember. The ledger never forgets." Henry paused, letting the words settle deep into his consciousness. He understood now that acknowledgement and endurance were inseparable, that true understanding required facing consequences without evasion, and that life itself was an intricate web of cause and effect. Each choice carried weight, each action had impact, and the ledger's impartial gaze was always present. With each step, each breath, each decision, Henry embraced his role as a conscious participant in the world, fully aware of the consequences of his past, present, and future actions. The city, fog-laden and indifferent, stretched endlessly before him, a vast stage upon which the ledger would continue to measure, record, and observe. Yet he moved forward with clarity, deliberate purpose, and a steady resolve. The figure's glow remained faintly in his mind, a reminder that the journey was ongoing, that awareness and endurance were lifelong obligations. And though the weight of consequence was ever present, Henry felt a measure of strength he had never known, the power to navigate life with conscious intention, guided by understanding, and forever mindful of the ledger's impartiality. He walked into the city fully awake, fully accounted, and fully conscious of the web of consequences around him. And for the first time, despite the shadows and the relentless ledger, Henry felt a strange equilibrium. A fragile but enduring sense that, though he could not undo the past, he could navigate the present with awareness, responsibility, and unflinching recognition of consequence. The fog rolled on, swirling in muted currents across streets and rooftops, and the city, waking to a new day, remained unaware of the ledger's presence. But Henry knew. He always knew. And he would continue to know, moving forward with deliberate steps, conscious choices, and a vigilance forged in the warehouse, the theatre, and the innumerable moments where consequence met awareness. The ledger was unyielding. The ledger was impartial. And Henry Carrington would endure, fully conscious, fully accounted, and forever aware.